And welcome everyone to Teachers Talk Live, the podcast for K-12 solutions. Today, we're discussing teaming up with Hispanic parents. Over the next hour, we want to discuss ways to maximize collaboration between teachers and parents. Particularly, we will delve into the culture and nuances that all teachers should know to make sure they have a productive relationship with Hispanic parents at school. They can be quite an asset, as my guests know. We have today some wonderful panelists here to discuss their experiences with collaboration with Hispanic parents. This is podcast episode 12. You may learn more about us at teachcow.com. Let's get started with our wonderful panelists. Let's begin would be on my left. Avelina, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Avelina Damonte, and I teach social studies in Florida for middle and high school. I teach in the regular traditional classroom, the blended classroom, and also fully virtual. I have a degree in social studies and a master's in adult education.
Nice. Welcome. Avelina. Lauren?
Hi, my name is Lauren Lintelman. I teach 5th grade bilingual language arts and social studies in a one-to-one classroom. This is my 7th year teaching here in Dallas, Texas. I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Roberts.
Yeah, hi, I'm in San Bernardino, California. I've been teaching at this school for 15 years. I've been in education for a total of 20. I have a master's in English and educational technology master's. I teach at an alternative continuation school.
Very nice. Welcome. And Vilma.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vilma Godoy. I've been teaching for 5 years, 2 years in California, and the other 3 years here in Kentucky. I've taught at the middle school and high school level, and I'm currently in a one-to-one classroom as well, and it's definitely very different but very exciting, challenging as well, but it's good to be here.
Welcome, welcome. So everyone, we're here to talk about teaming up with Hispanic parents, how to maximize collaboration. That's what I want to hit. I want to make sure that everyone, every teacher knows exactly how to approach Hispanic culture when it comes to collaborating with parents, teachers and parents. So let's just open it up. What have you seen? What challenges have you seen when it comes to collaborating and making sure we get the most out of Hispanic parents? Maybe not necessarily in your classrooms, but other observations you have made, and that's open to anyone.
Well, I think the collaboration part is tough because as we all know that everyone works, and the majority of people that in our community tend to work some pretty odd hours. We have a lot of distribution centers in our town, so there's many swing shifts. There's lots of lots of non-traditional hours. What we've done here, we had 2 sessions. So students can choose to go to an AM session or a PM session. And we have functions at lunch, which is usually it's from 12:45 to 1:30, and then we do have student parent council twice a month, and we get them here by offering food mostly. The taco truck is what brings them out, and that's how we do the beginning of the semester. We invite all the parents, and it's just mostly to not get them caught up in what their child is not doing good. You just let them see, here's our campus, here's where your son or daughter is going to be spending their time for the next 6-8 weeks, and word starts getting out. But like I said, the biggest problem is scheduling.
What I've seen just from experience is, obviously the language barrier, difficulties, direct communication, and knowledge of the culture. I think maybe sometimes the parents feel intimidated, or also the teachers feel intimidated trying to cross that cultural border, if you will. Um, and then the parents also, I think, a lot of times aren't sure how to help at home. They're really willing to help, they want to help, but they might not be sure how to go about that. So those are just some of the challenges, I guess, that I've seen.
And that, I guess, will bring us to the next point, which is the different approach that the Hispanic parents have with education. If the teacher is a non-Hispanic teacher, sometimes my experience is that they feel the parents are too involved, the parents are burdening too much, that that what they call the helicopter parents. um, but that's usually what happens in Hispanic households. To Hispanic families, education is very important, and that goes along with the discipline. Children have to study, and that's it. And the parents need, they feel the need to be involved. Some because they have experienced a lot of hard work, and they know that, or they believe that that's how you get ahead in life. And some because it's hard for them to get used to the system, and the cultural shock it's very, very high when parents are just arrived in the United States compared to the education systems in other Latin American countries.
Avelina, you said something important. Talk to us more a little bit about that strict parent. What are they looking for from the parent side? What are they looking for from that teacher? What do they want?
They want communication, constant. They need to know if the student is not only doing well academically, but also if they are being respectful, if they are behaving like they are supposed to, like they've been taught at home. And sometimes when the teacher is a non-Hispanic teacher, they see some behavior models or issues with the students, and they don't know that it comes from their culture. Um, Hispanic children usually, especially I guess from first generation or second generation in this country, are taught that the teacher is always right, the teacher has to be respected, and if the teacher says something, that's what you do. So for the children, even if the children feel that they may say something, they won't say it because the teacher is the adult and the teacher is always right. So that is something, that is a behavior pattern that the non-Hispanic teachers might feel like, okay, is not looking at me, or is not paying attention to me, or I'm talking to them and they are not responding, they are not answering. Why? It's a cultural issue.
I have to say, I agree with what Avelina is saying. I think culturally there are very many differences. I think as a teacher, but also as a student who is still Hispanic, but as a Hispanic student, there were a lot of things that I think made it difficult for my parents and my teachers to communicate, and some of that had to do with the teacher is expected really to just teach, but sometimes I think a Hispanic parent expects the teacher not necessarily to be a parent in the sense, but to really approach your classroom is for you to manage, and it is for you to make up the rules, and you get to be kind of the parent in that setting. So I think there's a lot of responsibility placed on the teacher because you're so revered, because in Hispanic cultures it really is what you say as a teacher, your role is really important. So it's very difficult, I think, for some non-Hispanic teachers to understand that that is really important for the Hispanic parent, for the teacher to know and assert kind of their place and their authority.
Vilma, you hit on a it jogged a memory for me what you were saying, because When I was 21, barely out of college, that's when I started teaching in Dallas, Texas. And I remember my first parent conference and having this mom who was in her somewhere in her 30s sitting across from me, looking at me as this authority. I mean, I barely knew what I was doing at this point. And she was just saying, Maestro, what do I do? What do I do? My kid doesn't want to do this or doesn't want to do that. Tell me what to do, please.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, at first I was really overwhelmed because you're right. They put us in this place of authority. And that's really important for people to know, for all teachers to know that they do place high expectations on you as a teacher.
Absolutely. And not only that, but the thing is that when they come already, older students, they don't know that here teachers have a lot of restrictions on how to manage the classroom. There is a lot of laws that you have to follow, and you cannot do many things that teachers in Hispanic countries do. So they are expecting you to be a mom in the classroom, and you say, sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
There are laws. Yes, they do think that way. They do expect pégale maestro. They
Yeah.
would say to me.
I've had parents tell me, just, I won't do anything. Just go ahead and take them around. I'm like, no, I'm not going to take them around anywhere. We do have an open policy for parents. If they do want to come and observe the classroom, they're more than welcome to at our school. We just don't get a lot of it. But like as being the white male, I feel sometimes though when I first meet the parents, they are a little bit intimidated by me.
Mm-hmm.
But I usually don't. We don't have traditional teacher-parent conferences. We have like an open house and then a back-to-school night, and then the parent clinics throughout the month that happen. But once their students start talking about, Mr. Christie's okay, he's all right, he's a good guy, he gives us, then they start coming around. But yeah, the biggest problem is that the language barrier for me a lot. But we are very, very blessed at this school with a lot of instructional aides that are bilingual. I have 3 that I can call on at any given time during the day. But I don't use them technically a lot for the students. That's the reaching out to the parents, and that's very helpful.
That's nice. That's really important for non-Hispanic teachers. They go through such a hard time communicating with parents because of lack of resources and lack of staff that will translate for them. So, yeah. How has it changed for you being a white male from when you began working with Hispanic parents? What were maybe some misconceptions that you've had that you've learned from and adapted to better teach and better communicate with them?
Probably the biggest one for me was learning how to listen to Hispanic parents. They're not straightforward, as you know. Like the Spanish dialectic, it kind of revolves around several circles before it gets to a point. And as teachers, sometimes when you're first starting out, you value every minute, And the more I've gotten into my career, I've learned to let them talk. Let them say what they need to say before you even bring up a subject. If they just need to get something off their chest about their student, then you let them do it. Because if there has to be that level of comfort, and so that they understand that okay, this is how I communicate. So go ahead and talk. And so the adaptation really has transformed me in the last 5 years, really. Because for the first 10 years you're teaching, you think you know what you're doing, but you really don't. Until you hit about the 15th year, you start realizing that I don't really know all of the things I thought I did. So that's been the biggest help for me, is coming from kind of a linguistic point of view with how Hispanics talk. And so you have to be very, very patient and very
Right.
understanding about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And regarding that, I want to ask the Hispanic teachers, what advantage of, if any, do you think you have with Hispanic parents? So talk a little bit about that as far as the hurdle that Roberts and any other non-Hispanic teacher might have to go through. What are the challenges? What are the advantages that you have?
I think immediately the language is definitely one of the advantages. I mean, at least for me, I speak it. But it also comes kind of as I don't want to say a crutch, but sometimes, I mean, I don't know that I would at this point consider Spanish my first language. I've been speaking English, I feel, for so much longer. So sometimes Hispanic parents come in and they look at me and they say, yes, another brown face, like I'm going to be able to speak Spanish to you. And I can, and I do speak it for the most part, but there are times that I get stuck. And there are times that I feel like I'm sitting there and I'm really literally saying out loud, how do you translate this? Like what am I trying to say, and how do I word it correctly so that it comes out the way I intend it to say in English? But also I mean, when I taught in California, I taught in the San Fernando Valley, and so most of our students were Hispanic. So I had grown very accustomed to having parents come, Hispanic parents come in and out, and just having that dialogue, and then being used to having Hispanic teachers as well. But when I moved here to Shelbyville, Kentucky, I am one of two Hispanic teachers at our high school. And when I was teaching middle school here, I was the only Hispanic person. So I think there is that comfort when a parent comes in and they see there's one of us. So it kind of puts them at ease to be able to see someone that they feel like they can relate to. So it does make that communication that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know about you two ladies. I'm guessing for your age that you have studied here. I was born in New York, but I grew up abroad due to my dad's career. So I even went to law school in a Latin American country. When I moved back here, after getting married, I decided to go into education. So I've been studying, speaking, and reading English for the past 26, 27 years of my life, more than I did Spanish. Um, but I do feel, like parents try to circle around you because of that comfort that you mentioned. They feel like we can understand them better because we have the same culture, we share traits with them, but at the same time sometimes it might be um, a disadvantage for the students, in the sense that oh, you know what, you can talk to my mom, I don't care, just talk to my mom, talk to my dad, you'll understand better. And they don't try to get with what you are trying to do in the classroom because you can explain better to the parents. That is something that in here in Florida we have also, like 90% of Hispanic students. So it's hard when the parents find a teacher that don't speak English at all, that doesn't speak Spanish at all. It's hard on them.
Yeah, I mean, I could say the same thing. I'm actually not Hispanic, but I speak Spanish. So just because of the language, there's automatically, they're less fearful or intimidated to approach me as opposed to other teachers. Although something that I do try to do is make myself available to the other teachers as much as possible. Like they have difficulty even sending positive notes home. So they'll send them to me and I translate and I, try to translate all the information that goes home. But even my school is pretty good about it. It's not, just isolated teachers. It's kind of our culture because that's our population. A lot of our staff is bilingual. So I think if non-Hispanic teachers are looking for that support, that they should try to get everybody involved. I don't think it's something that they can, obviously take on their own, but it's kind of a created school culture to make them feel that comfortable, and I feel that eventually they will get to that point where they're comfortable approaching any teacher.
Absolutely.
Speaking of culture, this is a question for everyone. I'm hitting on a, for me, touchy subject, and maybe tell me your experiences with school climate. Okay, because over the years, it seemed a lot of school districts and a lot of schools seem to be a little bit closed, and meaning not to one culture or anything like that, but to all parents. Like they want a little bit of separation between school and parents, and parents, you can only show up at this time and only in this side of the school, et cetera, et cetera. And I've always felt that's really difficult for especially Hispanic parents, because that just creates a climate of distrust. Do you sense that, or have you guys experienced anything like that as far as that separation between parents and school?
I have. I mean, just because I've gone through the change in the past few years with change in administration, I don't remember when I first started teaching having any parent contact at all besides parent conferences. Whereas now, in the past few years, we have really brought a lot of the parents in, even support from the community, some churches help us out, and it's literally from before the school year starts, we're making contact with parents. Yeah. Teachers are encouraged to, talk to the teachers from the previous year, and what parents do you think would be good parents to start building a relationship, and they suggest to do a home visit. We have a back to school bash where parents come in. We have a meet the teacher night. This is all before school even starts.
Nice.
Where we're touching base with parents. We have parent information nights throughout the school where I don't think we struggle as much with behavior with Hispanic students, just because of the things that you guys have said, but more of the academic part of it. So we do provide them with some academic support to the parents and some suggestions of how they can help at home, so that they feel really welcome, I think, when they're informed about what's going on academically. What else? We have a thing called Family Frenzy, where I think once every 9 weeks they come in during instruction time, and they grab a snack, and then they come into their child's classroom and sit and actually watch what they're doing. So we have a lot of stuff going on. So that's why I thought that I would be good, to share some of the stuff that we have at our school. But like I said, in the past, it was not like that. This is just a recent change that we've had in the past few years.
What do you think has brought that change of culture? Because I wish more schools would become that way.
Our administration and obviously the teachers, a lot of the Hispanic teachers and bilingual teachers, I think, pushing it. And like I said, our community, we work with some wonderful churches that, they have parenting classes at our school, and they set up a lot of things. My principal does coffee with the principal, where the parents can come in. They usually have a topic, and our school counselor is there, and it could be academic, behavioral, and just time to get to know the administration as well as the teachers, and they feel more comfortable when they get to know the admin, not just their child's teacher.
Yeah. Then in my district, they in the last, I don't know, our new superintendent, I think he came in 3 years ago. He implemented a program where he calls it Making Hope Happen. It's based on, I think there's a book by the same title. But basically, instead of calling them parents, they're called stakeholders. So,
ooh, nice.
They're reminded that they're needed to make this a successful community. Mm-hmm. So we just had a FAFSA workshop but it also goes over how to enroll your student in the DREAM Act, because in California we have a DREAM Act. So if you're an unregistered citizen or a resident, it doesn't preclude you from going to community college. It doesn't preclude you from going to adult ed even. So a lot of our parents do inquire about, finishing the proficiency exam or, going to adult ed while their son or daughter is working on the FAFSA. But the stakeholder thing has been sort of a real paradigm shift for us, so that they're not just saying, we'll need you when we let you know, but the stakeholder reminds them that they need to be involved to make the whole thing successful.
Right. Nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it makes me wonder if the change has happened at all in relation to maybe more Hispanic teachers or even more minority teachers, more minority people becoming teachers. Just because, I think of when I was in high school, and it was a largely Hispanic population, but we had two really great Hispanic teachers who were at the forefront of a lot of what Robert has shared, which was the FAFSA night and just like a lot of things that, had it not been for those two teachers making me as a Hispanic student aware of the fact that there was financial aid and walking me through the process of it. And even they went so far as they had a Hispanic community night. It really was just an overall community night, but it seemed like only Hispanics showed up. And they did something that I thought was so profound that I will never forget, where they showed us the statistics of these are how many students start high school. These are how many students finish high school. Out of those who finish, this is the percentage that is Hispanic. Out of those Hispanics who finish, this is the percentage that applies to college. And out of those, this is the percentage that actually graduates. And so those numbers were so staggeringly low that I remember thinking at that time, like, I have to do this and I have to finish this. And so I feel like we need more teachers like that in our community that are willing to take up that work, because it is work, of bringing the community in and making them aware there is, financial aid, and the DREAM Act does apply, and you can't, there's all these things available to really anybody that is willing to seek it, but if you're not aware of it, it makes it very difficult for you to know what to look for.
Right.
Absolutely. Our school is an open door school, and the principal is always available for the parents. He's always walking around the school, and but this is what I noticed. Even though we have all those events, and we have the Hispanic Month, and we have nights for college and family nights and open conferences and all that, what I really see, I will say in the last couple of years is more teachers are appealing to the students, pushing the students and pushing the parents to continue in their education because of what you said. The numbers, the dropout numbers, and the low graduation rates on minority students in general, and in Hispanic students more so, it's so great that teachers are taking up to their own hands and say, well, you know what, you can do this, we have lots of resources, and they are making the parents and the students aware of all those resources that they have that they can utilize in order to graduate and continue their education. I always say one thing, and some people may not agree with that. I think that society needs not only engineers and lawyers and doctors. We need an array of different people that will continue our society. And even though we push for education up to a college, especially in the minority groups, there is a financial burden on the families. And that is one of the reasons that some of the students decide to start working, and let's face it, as soon as the student starts working full-time, it's very hard for them to continue their education. But I think that the system needs to change in such a way that we can have more choices available to the students, particularly to the minority students.
Yeah, Avelina, I totally agree with that. It seems to be that that is something that needs to be changed overall. Because I come from an elementary perspective, so I don't always think of those kids in high school, close to finishing up, and the options that they have or that they don't have. And so, yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be opportunities for all students as far as what they're going to do next. But that brings me to another point. What about family responsibility? Speaking specifically to Hispanic families, can someone talk a little bit more about what, especially in those higher grades, what happens to those kids as far as their home life, the family, the mom trying to take care of 2 jobs and doing all this stuff, and the child suddenly at a certain age feels like they need to chip in. Can you shed some light on that part of Hispanic culture?
Well, I think they just touched on something that it's becoming more and more visible. I don't know if it's you or me.
Only 3 more of those.
It's becoming more and more visible with economic struggles since 2005 onwards. You see that the Hispanic families, they feel responsible for the students' education, but at the same time, when they have to put a plate of food on the table or they have to pay rent for the house, then it becomes more and more difficult for parents to be involved. And again, the student not only needs, feels the responsibility to chip in, but sometimes they have the obligation, because otherwise, I've had students during the very hard years of the crisis that they were living in their cars. And we live in a neighborhood that it's middle class. The school is in a middle class neighborhood. But it affected so much. But it's a mostly a minority students, either Hispanic or African American students. We're not Title I, but we are most minority student population, and the family feels the responsibility of the education. But when you cannot afford it to continue, and when the student needs to start working, it's very hard for them, and that takes a toll on the family.
Right.
I think the one challenge I notice with the family is, especially when you have like brothers and sisters in classes, and I have like multi-generational now where I've seen, their brothers and then some uncles, and I even have some kids of students that have come back to me now. So, but the one thing that I've noticed is the difference in treatment between the male and the female. Like, it's a different conversation to talk about what the boy is doing in class as to what the girl is doing in class. There seems to be a lot of coddling on the boys' end. Like, it's okay, we'll take care of that. And then you say the same thing about the girl, and I've had parents who would want to get up in the middle of a conversation and smack the kid, and I'm just like, we can't do that. So that's a hard one for me to get used to, because I don't know. I only have a son, but I'd like to think that I would hold the same expectations for both. But culturally, it's just not the same expectations, and that's a real hurdle for most teachers, is to understand it's a different conversation between male and female students.
Absolutely. I was reading Judge Sotomayor biography, and she mentions that she has brothers, and she was the only sister and the only female in the sibling group, and nobody ever believed that she was going to achieve what she has in her career because she was the girl of the family and she wasn't supposed to go to university and she wasn't supposed to do all those things. She was supposed to, go to college or try and work as a secretary, get married, have kids. I think that is changing little by little as long as the families live here for longer periods of time. And when you have second or third generation Hispanic students, then the conversation changes. I have a son and a daughter, and I expect exactly the same thing for both. And I even tell my daughter, for you, it's harder, and you have to achieve even more, and you have to work harder um, because of the fact that you're a female. The problem is, Hispanic cultures, it's very male oriented, and when they just come here it's very difficult for them to see that they can expect the same thing from both of them.
Wow. Vilma, it sounded like you wanted to jump in. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna tell Robert, I'm like, you're stirring up some raw emotion here. Just, I mean, it takes me back not too very long ago to exactly when I finished high school. I remember telling my parents, and this is part of my rebellious stage. I remember thinking, like, when I turn 18 and I go to college, I'm gonna go to one that's really far away, and I just want to be gone. And I remember them telling me that I couldn't go away. Like if I was going to go, I had to go to a local college. And for some reason, I did exactly that. And I went to a commuter school and I went, locally. And so now that my brothers have gone off to school, they just said, well, we're going to go to college and we're going to go away. And of course they went away. And so it's definitely interesting. And I think from someone who lived it in terms of what it was like to feel that difference, I can understand. I think it makes me relate to a lot of the Hispanic female students a lot because I'm able to see that. And I said, I am able to say to myself, like, I know what that's like. For me, just personally, it makes it more relatable.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's a major thing that I feel like all teachers should know, that there is that thing going on in the gender. So I'm glad you guys brought it up. What else about it can you shed some light on a non-Hispanic teacher that doesn't know what we're talking about? What are those expectations for the female?
I think that there's, I mean, like anything else, there's two extremes to this. I mean, there are the parents who are going to want their daughters to not go to college and maybe fulfill more of whatever they're culturally what they were used to. But there are also those parents that don't see that gender difference. There's no difference between them, and you do whatever you need to do to be successful. But I don't know. I mean, it is such a male-oriented culture. And even as I say that, I think about my family, and I think, yes, it was male-dominated, but it was what my mom said. Like, that's what went. We were going to keep up this facade of it was my dad's rules, but if my mom wanted to bend them, she could. So I think I don't know, culturally it's hard to explain because we are male-dominated, but the mom has so much power in the household, and I think that's really important to understand. And I'm not sure in terms of students what it means when the mother or the father isn't present. As far as our culture, I don't know what that changes for a student.
Right. What have you all noticed about acculturation? It seems we're talking about Hispanic culture in general. Now, I should have said this at the beginning. We're generalizing. I mean, every region is different, and every culture within Hispanic cultures are different. But then there's the the factor of Hispanic families that have been here a long time, maybe several generations, that acculturate and become not at all what we're talking about. So what have you noticed about that? Anybody?
I think obviously the longer that someone is here, the longer someone is here, if they're willing to, the more they're going to adapt to this culture. But I mean, I think it does depend on that willingness. I think that some people want to assimilate and want to become part of the culture that they're living in. And some people have very strong feelings about that, and their whole intention is, I refuse to accept a different culture. My culture is too important, and I don't want to change, not because yours isn't a valuable one, but because mine means that much to me. So I think some people have to understand that you will come across Hispanic parents who don't want anything to do with learning English, not because they can't, but because they feel like that's turning their back on their roots. So you have to be willing to understand that it's not an academic or intelligence thing. It's not because Hispanics lack that, because maybe we value our culture so much that we're afraid of what's going to happen when we accept another one.
Yeah.
And I think you touch on something that if the teacher is non-Hispanic, they need to understand that it doesn't mean that the parents are illiterate, that they don't have an education. It just means that they value their roots. And I was talking before this started with Oscar and Richard and Robert that in Florida, I noticed something totally different from when I speak with teachers from California or from the Northeast to what I see in Florida. Parents speak English and children speak English. For what I can see in my perception, in California, from Mexican background or from Puerto Rican or Dominican background in the Northeast, than what they do here in Florida. What I noticed, for example, in my school is that there is a clear divide, and usually Hispanic children tend to move and be part of groups with Hispanic children, and African Americans do the same thing, and Asians do the same thing. And I'm guessing that amongst them, then maybe they speak the language, but non-Hispanic teachers, it's my perception, they need to understand something that Oscar said, that they need to learn the culture, they need to know, to get informed, because not every Latin American country have the same traits. And that is important because you can see that in the kids' behavior and the parents' behavior also.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I was just going to make a comment about the assimilation. I think it's also a responsibility as teachers of Hispanic students, whether they speak Spanish or not, to try to find, and this is my district is pretty good about this, culturally sensitive resources. So for reading, we're reading Hispanic authors, and we're reading, obviously in the bilingual class, the texts that we read are written in Spanish, but they're of Hispanic culture. So I don't think that they should have to deal with losing their culture at all. I think that we should heavily support them and allow them to speak their language, because I have Hispanic students in my English class who, if I put them in a book club, I'll make sure that I choose a book that is sensitive to their culture, and they get like super excited if they're reading and there are some Spanish words in there, because they don't get that at school in the English class all the time. So because I'm also a bilingual teacher, I'm pretty sensitive to that, and it's really exciting to see them excited because they haven't had it for so long. So I think just teachers need to realize that and work a little bit harder to understand their cultures, and other cultures also,
Right.
for the kids.
I think people in Southern California, we have it's a really unique area. if you're closed off to Hispanic culture, you should probably move
Right.
because
Same here. I mean, that's how it is here.
yeah, Southern California is it's Hispanic. I mean, we from driving around in San Bernardino or Santa Ana, even Orange, you'll see Spanish signs everywhere. So and the word like assimilation, it kind of, I don't know, that one kind of like bristles me a little bit because making everyone the same, and that would be horrifying if everyone were the same, and I think once parents do start getting involved, they see like a new generation in education where we're not so closed off to any, we need all the resources we can get, whether it's somebody who wants to come in and translate for us, whether it's somebody who wants to bring something at break time for students to share, or so it's just the inviting atmosphere. It sounds better than assimilating. Just let's we haven't had it in about a year, but we used to have days where we would specifically focus on particular Latin heritage, like Mexican Day, Puerto Rican Day, so that they would know that there's differences. And those differences need to be recognized and respected, and then we kind of all understand each other and kind of move on and just make it, because that whole melting pot idea, I hope we don't use that anymore, do we?
No.
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, good.
I don't know if when we finish it is a place to send the colleagues some resources. I'm a subscriber of Teaching Tolerance, and it's a great resource. It deals with issues from gender and religion and race and ethnicity, and I think it's in Santa Ana. There is a group of teachers that they have created something that is called, I think, a writing night, where they invite the Hispanic parents in California, obviously, and they have created like this club, this literacy club, where they read and they write, because there is also the divide between now the children, the students that are going to school, mostly, taking classes in English the whole day, and the parents that they don't fully learn the language, they don't fully function in the new language. And there is that miscommunication also between those two groups. So these two teachers have created this group. It's really fascinating what they are doing.
Nice.
That's great.
I wanted to share when we were talking about differences in culture. Now, I've taught in California and in Texas. I started out in Texas, and what I learned there from mostly Mexican American culture is that these parents saw me as the know-it-all. So they expected me to know everything, and what I said was golden. So even if a kid contradicted me, they immediately just like, no, he said this and this and this. Mr. C said this. And then I go to California, and all of a sudden I have parents coming to me, oiga, maestro, why haven't you given my child the homework, or why did you give him the wrong homework, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. I gave them the correct homework. I gave her the correct. No, but he says otherwise.
Yeah.
And that was totally new to me because I had never been questioned before, So that was just one of the many differences that I saw in Hispanic parents between California and Texas.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
I think there are a lot of changes. I wanted to go back to something I'm not sure who
Sure.
in terms of the differences culturally. I think one of the things that non-Hispanic teachers need to remember is that not every Hispanic student is Mexican.
Right.
And that may sound kind of silly, but it's just I come across colleagues who will say things like that, and I don't think people mean to be insensitive, and I don't think that they're, I don't know, I'm not even sure how exactly to frame it, but I think they're just so used to the idea of a Hispanic person being Mexican that it's just their assumption that of course you're Mexican. I mean, what else would you be? So I think that's one of the things that you have to remain sensitive about. I think I'm particularly sensitive about it because I'm always telling people like, no, I'm Guatemalan, and so I've had students ask me, well, where is that? So it's a good talking point sometimes to share with students, like, there is something other than Mexico, and people do come from another place.
Vilma, I'm Hondureño, and so I've always been kind of sensitive to that myself. It's just so interesting, but at the same time, it's just as simple as opening up a map. You know, just open up a map and look up some geography. Just refresh your geography. There's a lot of Latin American cultures.
Yeah,
So.
and it's actually, you know, my class that has Hispanic students and African American students, they're writing feature articles right now. And some of the African American students have chosen, one is doing Guatemala, and she's writing, you know, an article about Guatemala, so it's pretty interesting to see those types of interactions.
Well, I teach also Spanish, and from the, you know, since our books to teach Spanish are mostly, when you open them up, it's Mexican dialect. That's why people here believe that, you know, everybody that speaks Spanish is from Mexico, because even the books are, you know, they have a Mexican dialect. So, you know, there is a need to change that and to make, you know, a mainstream that there is a difference. There are radical difference. Even when you speak the language, sometimes people speak in the same language, the same Spanish, you cannot understand. I remember when I first moved to Florida, I was like, what? No. Wait a second. What is it you're trying to say? And we, you know, both spoke Spanish, but there is a difference.
and just, you know, we love our Mexican friends. So.
Absolutely.
So everyone, we're in our last 10 minutes, so let's start summarizing and start talking specifically about anything that we want to tell our non-Hispanic teachers. What do we want them to know so that they can maximize and get the most out of their students? What have we not?
Respect level, you know, that, like we talk about. One of the things I try to tell the new teachers on campus is, you know, don't try to use the phrase we're all students in my classroom. You know, yes, you are a student, but your background influences how you're going to learn that material and how you're going to, you know, use it. And so we have to make sure that, you know, they have the resource that supports their language, supports their learning style, and supports the way that they relate to the material. And if you don't have the aids and if you don't speak Spanish, you know, it's a really, really difficult road to walk down unless you get the teachers and the parents involved with each other. So I think that the statement that our district is making, that they're stakeholders and that their influence is greater than they can imagine in our schools. I think that's a good message to send all teachers, is that don't think of them as just parents that take care of it, but that stakeholders that influence the whole community.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I congratulate your school. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you know, I agree with that. You know, just obviously listen to them, reach out to them, create that open door, you know, welcoming to them, work with them, and, you know, get help from other people, administration, try to involve everybody and let them come in and see what's going on in the school, in the classroom, volunteering. We have, you know, parents that love to come in and volunteer and just build the relationships with them.
I think in my experience, I think because the majority that I've worked with has been Hispanic families, and they are so giving. They are so loving and giving if you can open that path with them. Right. So how does a non-Hispanic teacher do that if they don't speak the language, if they don't speak Spanish? Because that seems a big deal to the parents, you know, that you can speak their language, but that's not possible everywhere. So how do we get across that? Because they're so wonderful and giving once you cross that bridge with them.
I think that as Robert was saying, there is a lot of resources nowadays that a non-Hispanic speaking teacher can use to communicate with Hispanic parents. But I think that the bottom line is to be respectful and to not assume immediately that because the parents or the child does not speak English at all or 100%, that they are completely illiterate or they don't have an education. I think that be respectful of that is very important for Hispanic parents. And getting to know them and to know their cultures and their customs is very important. And it's very helpful to the development of the student.
Very good.
I think also we're in a time where there are so many resources. Like I understand that not every non-Spanish speaking teacher is going to be able to make that phone call and have a conversation. But in the age of technology, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't type up a friendly letter where, I mean, I think the one of the things that's most important to a Hispanic parent is communication, is feeling like I'm not being excluded because of my language or because, I don't speak English. So I think if a teacher made the effort to at least send out a letter that says, hi, my name is whatever, and I just want to reach out to you and open up the lines of communication. If you ever want to get in contact with me, here are some avenues, and let me know so we can schedule, translation or interpretive services. Then at least that parent doesn't feel like I'm already being written off because they're not even going to attempt to keep me in the loop. So I think just that extra effort on a teacher's part, and I know that's asking for a lot for teachers, but it is going to require a little bit of work on your end to kind of prep the parents to tell them you do care.
Vilma, and I think that extra effort pays off in dividends. I mean, it's huge. If you put that extra effort, it's amazing how much you get out of it.
Social media has made it a lot easier. Like my Twitter account, I do post a lot of like kudos to students, and they run home and they show their parent, and then I end up with the parent as a follower too. So that anytime that they know that Twitter is a weird one because they do all feel connected to you, so the stuff I post on there is intended not just for resources for kids and other educators, but it's intended for them as well,
Yeah.
Yeah, times have changed with the social media. Times have changed because just a few years ago, for low-income Hispanic populations, they didn't have a cell phone, a smartphone, and now all of them do. Everything is affordable. They have access to smartphones, and with that, access to social media. And I stopped teaching right towards the end when that was really populated, and so I think it's a great tool, social media, as far as communicating, keeping that communication open with parents, and even I think even Facebook has like translation services, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you
And
can
sometimes a text is quicker and easier than a big letter. I have a Google number. I mean, granted, I teach virtually, but I have a Google number, and the parents text me, okay, how is my son doing? And you know what? It's easier and it's faster. And I mean, everybody has their phone 24/7 attached to themselves, so it's easier to reach the parent. Okay, you know what? I need to speak with you. Why don't you call me, please? It's easier that way than any other method of communication.
So, if you guys don't have any more, I want to close off with what I think is probably the most important, the biggest barrier between teachers and parents, that was brought up at the beginning, intimidation. So teacher being intimidated or parent being intimidated, what is something, and I would like to hear from all of you, what is something that we can do to overcome that, either the parent and the teacher?
I think one of the things that I hope non-Hispanic teachers are not intimidated by is our Hispanic volume. I think we come off kind of loud, and I hope that people don't misinterpret that as like anger or whatever. It's just, I think that's how we are, and so don't be intimidated by our volume is something I was going to say. We don't mean to come off that way if we do. My husband always tells me I'm too loud, so that's immediately what I think of.
Yeah.
I think the other important one is to, if you're scheduling a meeting with a Hispanic parent, don't set a time limit on it. So, give them the time so that they don't feel like you're not listening. So if you want to meet with them 10 minutes before the bell, put it off for a later time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
I would just, saying it could be a gradual process, like start out something small, informal, to try to get through the intimidation, and then move on to the, more serious conferences and things. So just fun things. Like I said, we have our back to school bash, really informal. There's basically nothing, no intimidation there, and it's fun and friendly. And then, as you work the relationship, it, gets a little more serious after that.
I think one of the things that a teacher can implement is to be open to get to know their culture and to not to become part, but to really get to know them. It is important for Hispanic families that they are appreciated, and sometimes they can come up as maybe too friendly. They don't know what the personal space is for the regular white person, but they don't mean anything by it. It's just their culture, and that is something that is part of them, and it has to be respected.
Yeah. And I would say if you feel that parent is standoffish or seeming closed, keep trying, because I don't think it's anything negative. It's not that they dislike you or something like that. It's just that they haven't reached that comfort level yet, and it takes a lot from the teacher to do outreach. So do as much outreach as possible. So with that, anything that we haven't talked about, you guys? Can you think of anything else that we need to touch on?
We cover all bases.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. If you could tell us your full names once again, because this is being recorded, and so we have, starting with Avelina, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Avelina Damonte, and you can reach me at Mrs. Damonte at mrsdamonte.com.
Next.
My name is Lauren Lintelman, and you can reach me on Twitter at LAURML.
And Roberts.
Hi, my name is Rob Christie. On Twitter, Mr. C. Sierra. That's about it.
And Vilma.
And I am Vilma Godoy, and I'm on Twitter at V as in Victor _ Johanna, JOHANA 11.
And this information will all be available on the show notes, so you can look them up that way as well. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I hope you have learned something from us as far as teaming up with Hispanic parents. So, and also reach out to us and ask us any questions, any more clarification on this topic, because we do want to help you. So thank you for watching Teachers Talk Live, the podcast for K-12 Solutions.
Thank you.